This is not Sung Jinwoo, at least not in Japan. In Japan, his name is Mizushino Shun. And no, this isn't just a localization of the name. See this? This isn't Seoul. It's Tokyo. See this guy? He's not the Hunter Association chairman of Japan. He's the Hunter Association chairman of a made-up country called DFN. Everything to do with Korea is swapped out for Japan. Kosaka Shizuku, Ryu, Morobishi Kenta, Goto Kiyomi, and there's even plot changes. In the Jeju Island arc, the DFN, the made-up country that takes the place of Japan, is softened to be less antagonistic. So what's the deal? This is like CCP level of censorship. Well, we've got to go back a little bit. Before I dive into the history of tensions between Japan and Korea, I want to warn you. Japan is most definitely the bad guy here. As an anime fan, that might be a tough pill to swallow, so turn back now if you just don't want to think about it, which is basically the Japanese approach to the whole situation. Alright, let's start with some geography. This is Japan, and this is Korea, and this is China, the historical center of the Eastern world. Now, if you were here on Japan, and you wanted to establish a high-volume trade route, a military supply line, or basically any other path to China, how would you do it? Keep in mind that this strait here is like 600 miles across, and this one is basically 500 miles across. Short answer, you go through Korea. Prior to the 16th century, the two countries were primarily trading partners. Korea also brought Buddhism to Japan. However, early mistrust was established in Korea because Japanese pirates regularly raided Korea throughout this entire period. This ultimately culminated in the Imjin War in the 16th century, where Japan invaded Korea. Luckily for Korea, Big Brother China was not okay with that and helped repel the invasion. However, the Korean population was decimated by the war, and the cultural treasures, archives, and a large number of artisans were looted from the country and brought back to Japan. Fast forward to the 19th century, which saw trade grow dramatically throughout the East as countries opened up from their isolationist policies. Korea was under Chinese control for most of this period, which ultimately led to the First Sino-Japanese War at the end of the century. The war was fought for control of the Korean peninsula and ended with Korea under Japanese control until the end of World War II. This occupation was a deeply dark period for the Koreans. Japanese settlers took their land, Korean men were forced into slave labor, and something like 4% of the female population was forced into brothels. Koreans weren't even allowed to keep their names. Japan forced them to abandon their Korean names in exchange for Japanese ones. The Japanese were brutal from the mid-19th to mid-20th century. It's easy for us to forget as Westerners because of our own embarrassment from World War II, but right or wrong, the US was driven to take the actions that it did by the brutality of the Japanese during the war. The period of Japanese colonial control over Korea ended along with World War II and saw Korea liberated. In Japan, the war crimes committed by the Japanese were censored heavily. There was a national effort to focus on the sacrifice made by the average Japanese citizen to support the soldiers who fought in the war, and an obfuscation of the war crimes committed by those soldiers. Out of sight, out of mind. And that sums up the history of the back and forth conquering. Well, the conquering. There really isn't any back and forth. So why is Japan the one censoring mention of Korea and not the other way around? Before we get to that, I need to tell you about Fluyo, the most fun and effective way to learn Japanese or Korean. If you want to watch anime without subtitles or enjoy K-pop without having to guess how to pronounce the words, you should download Fluyo. It's a language learning RPG where you explore the world, battle enemies, and learn a language along the way. Fluyo was the highest funded app on Kickstarter ever for a reason, and you can try it out for free. Link in the description. So, why is Japan the one censoring? Well, it comes down to Korea's pursuit of reparations. In 1965, Japan paid around $800 million, that's about $8 billion in today's money, to Korea for reparations and called it done, like done. Legally, final and irreversible in the Japanese courts. $800 million for some of the worst war crimes committed in history. As you can imagine, the Koreans have some objections. The Koreans have consistently pushed for more reparations from Japan. This back and forth continues through today. When you stir up Japanese nationalism with censorship of historical wrongdoing and persistent requests for reparations from Korea after a final and irreversible settlement, you can start to get the picture of why many Japanese citizens think quite poorly of Koreans. While Korean media isn't officially censored or anything like that, Japanese media companies often censor Korean content to avoid backlash and the subsequent loss of advertisers. That's exactly what happened with Solo Leveling. But I'd like to give a big props to A1 Pictures, the studio behind Solo Leveling, for creating and publishing a non-censored version for consumption outside of Japan. That's a big W. So, next time you see Sung Jinwoo, hopefully in Season 3, maybe you'll think of Mizushino Shun. If you've enjoyed learning about this rapid-fire history of Japan and Korea, please share this video with someone you think will enjoy it. It helps even more than a like or subscribe.